All right, folks. Hey, welcome back to Bitcoin is Freedom. This is Paul McNeil, the crypto curator. Today is Sunday, so I'm going to be recapping some of the news from the week, but I'm also going to be talking about a few other issues that I think you're going to find very interesting. But before I do that, let's thank our sponsor, Roundly X, without which this video wouldn't be made possible. So again, Roundly X is an easy way for you to stack sats. And how do you do that? You connect your credit card or debit card to their platform. When anytime you swipe it, it rounds that purchase up to the next highest dollar amount, storing that in sats. Makes it super easy for you to hopefully one day get one whole Bitcoin. All right, let's get on with our show.
Here we go.
Let's get started.
Awesome, folks. Hey, I'm so excited to be back to recap the week a little bit, tell you about some of the stuff that's going on, but also to touch on a couple really key conversations that I've become aware of this week. And hopefully you'll get something out of it. And I hope it actually stirs a lot of dialogue, not only with you, but with your family and your friends as you talk about Bitcoin and why it really is freedom. And that's something that I've talked about in the show a countless number of times, is that I believe that Bitcoin gives us the ability to truly take back our time. And if you know, and if you listen to anybody, your time is the most scarcest thing that you have, because guess what? We're only here for a little while. 100 years might seem like a long time. And if you make it to 100, hey, kudos to you, because it seems like most people probably depart before then. So, what we'll do is we'll jump right into the week's sort of recap. And what I do on this weekend recap, and as most of you probably already know, I curate news information every day. And as a result of curating that news, I'm able to see trends that develop throughout the week. I'm able to look at certain statistics, and that gives us a feel for what's really have been happening in the market, right? And so that's what I do. I'm going through a lot of the crypto publications, videos, podcasts, blogs. I'm looking at all of it, and I look at it with the eye primarily on Bitcoin. But as you guys know, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, definitely not toxic. But I do believe Bitcoin is the most important asset that we have in this market. I do look at the top 10 digital assets, and the reason for that is because I believe if you're in the top 10, you have a good chance of surviving. But of course, I got caught off guard with Luna. Luna was in the top 10, and we know what happened to that. Don't need to rehash that story. So, this price that you're looking at on the screen, it's only Monday through Friday. Okay, so the closing price of Monday through Friday, that's what I've captured. And as you can see, Bitcoin has moved pretty much about $2,000-ish. And in my brief, I told people this is the Bitcoin that we all have come to love, right? Bitcoin becoming a stable coin just isn't, it doesn't do it for us, right? But when Bitcoin begins to make its moves, and it does move, it can skyrocket on you really fast. And so those people who were caught off guard by this move, this is why you can't try and time the market. If you're trying to catch the absolute bottom and you're trying to catch the absolute top, you're going to probably be disappointed. And reason for that is because Bitcoin makes its moves really fast, really quick, without any announcement. And as a matter of fact, most of the people before this move were being quite bearish. They were giving us some really bearish sentiments, and they were saying things. And again, the 10,000 club. Now, again, I'm sorry, but I will definitely make fun of the $10,000 club if we never make it to $10,000. We make it there, I'm not disappointed. I win either way, right? Because I get $10,000 sats, or right, or again, if it goes down 10,000, I'm not hurt by that. I'm super excited by it because I'm in this for the long term. If you are a long term investor, right, not short, long, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, you really don't care what this price is doing. The only thing you're concerned with doing is hodling, right? Because if you hodl and you hold on to it and you stay in the market, and this is again, you can't time the market, you need to have time in the market, and that's what is most powerful. And so you've seen the price move from 17,000, 19,000, and right now we're trading about, let me pull up my little chart, $20,800 is where we are right now. Now, the question, and I'll get into this a little bit later, is about which way we go, and I'll talk about it. The most covered news, believe it or not, all the crypto publications, CNBC, Forbes, everybody covered this story, and it was about Coinbase cutting 20% of its workforce. Its stock actually popped on the news, and a lot of analysts were saying this is actually good because it shows that Coinbase is being financially responsible and doing the right thing. If you know in the traditional markets, anytime a company comes out and say they're cutting the workforce, their stock takes a pop. Why? Because they know that the company is putting itself in the best possible position to win. And this is the same thing that Coinbase is doing. Now, I realize a lot of you don't like Coinbase. You call it Conbase, my good friend for Funny. and I understand why. And we'll get into this a little bit later in the broadcast as well, as to why people don't happen to like exchanges. We just saw one exchange give us the okie doke, right? FTX completely eviscerated everybody in the market as a result of its shenanigans. So let's leave that where that is. The podcast of the week, I actually decided to pick the Bitcoin Matrix podcast because it had Alexander Leishman on it. He's from River Financial, and he was talking about building generational wealth with Bitcoin. And folks, there's so many aspects to this podcast that you should listen to. Now, I will say that sort of the next thing that I'm going to bring to you guys' mind is about self-custody, right? River Finance is in the business of helping you to self-custody your Bitcoin. But there's another company that's also in that same place, and that's Unchained Capital. And if the host would go, the producer would go to the next slide, there you go, self-custody. Listen, folks, last week I had John West on. He's from McKinney Bitcoin, and me and him had a conversation about self-custody. Now, we know as a result of what happened with Luke Dash Jr., and this is what Alexander talks about in the podcast, a lot of people were saying, listen, if a OG developer can't self-custody, what hope do I have at self-custody? That is not true, folks. Self-custody of your Bitcoin is incredibly easy, and I say that, and it is incredibly easy because you have support. You have companies like River Financial and Unchained Capital that can help you. If you get this brief and you're looking at this later, this whole broadcast later, you can click on that and that takes you to their blog. Unchained Capital's blog will tell you a lot of different things you can do to self-custody your Bitcoin. And guess what? It's not as hard as you think. And what I would encourage a lot of folks, now I happened to go to a Bitcoin meetup this last week, actually put on by Dallas Bitcoiners, and Unchained Capital was the sponsor there, of course. And Unchained Capital, me and Steven, who's the marketing person, were talking about this. And what I told him was that, listen, we should encourage every Bitcoiner. And listen, folks, listen to me clear. We should encourage every Bitcoiner, create an account at Unchained Capital. Now, I know some people are like, well, I don't want to KYC my Bitcoin. I get that. Don't KYC your Bitcoin. You don't have to do all of it, but you can do some of it, right? And again, it's not an all or nothing, it's some. And that's the beautiful thing about this. If you are concerned and you want to have some of your Bitcoin stash, and this is Bitcoin, this is not crypto, this is Bitcoin stash, available to your heirs, an easy way to do it is using Unchained Capital because they're using multi-sig. And even if you're not worried about from an estate perspective, you're just looking at it from I don't want to lose my Bitcoin and I don't want to hold it on an exchange. Hold it. They help you do this. Now, you can do it on your own. If you're smart enough and you got the technical acumen, then you can just create an account with Unchained. They give you the multi-sig capability. Boom, in and out, you're done. Look at their website. They give you step-by-step processes. But if that's still too technical for you, it's not that expensive to have Unchained help you out, self-custody your Bitcoin. Now, why are we talking about all this self-custody? And what does this have to do with Bitcoin and freedom? It has to do with the fact that Bitcoin is a decentralized, censorship-resistant technology. And this is the first time we've had the ability to truly own our assets. Whether you're looking at this from property rights, Bitcoin gives you incredibly strong property rights. hopefully in the future, we'll see Bitcoin give us digital identity rights. And we hope that it gives us continued privacy. All of these different aspects matter when it comes to Bitcoin. And this is why Bitcoin is so important, because this is truly, and I'm going to get into this later with another point that I'm going to bring up, it gets rid of the government in a peaceful way. Now, I've been having some long conversations with folks in the Bitcoin McKinney Bitcoin Telegram group about this topic, about the government's involvement in our lives and how do we get ourselves out of this, the unlimited printing of money, all of these things that impact us, right? The US is $30 trillion in debt. Bitcoin fixes this, right? Because, and I'll get into this later too, if we fix the money, we fix the world, right? And so this is what I'm trying to get folks to understand with Bitcoin being freedom. We're getting our time back, because with this type of money, it is not going to be inflated away by the government printing unlimited amounts. Why? Because there's 21 million Bitcoin in existence. 4 million of those Bitcoin have probably been lost forever. Satoshi has a million of them, right? Those Bitcoin has never moved. So you're looking at 17 million Bitcoin for 8 billion people on the planet. And people say, well, will everyone use Bitcoin? Eventually, but most of us will probably be dead and gone by the time that day happens. The last Bitcoin will be mined in the year 2140. It's a long time away for the last Bitcoin to be mined. So the reality still comes. If you're peacefully moving your money into Bitcoin, that's putting it in a place to where it cannot be co-opted by the government, can't be seized. I say that tongue in cheek, because it's censorship resistant. It's resistant. It doesn't mean you can't censor it. Doesn't mean you can't take it away from it, can't confiscate it. We've seen cases where that's happened, but it is censorship resistant. It resists that because it's decentralized. And so that's what I talk about. So on the next slide, let's talk about something else, because I do want to talk about this a little bit when we look at the market. And as I mentioned before, the market is in fact moving. Now the question becomes, because it seems like it's starting to be a little bit sideways, limbo action, which way are we going? Are we going to continue to go up and rally up to 30K? Or will we tank and go down to 10K, 12K? Well, as a result of me curating this news, this is something that I'd like to highlight, because this is sort of what and again, I'm going to say this because, and I mean no disrespect to these gentlemen that I'm going to mention, because I realize that we all have some type of a stature in the crypto community, and some people, and some of these publications call these people analysts, strategists, traders, right? And sometimes they call the same person both names, an analyst, that's a strategist, and a trader. So they throw these names around. Who are these people? What are their backgrounds? I did not dig into that for this particular broadcast, but I might wind up doing that to give us a little background on these people, and if we can honestly believe what they're saying, because they do have different points of view. Now, right now, everybody's asking, is this crypto winter? Is this bear market over? Or is this truly crypto spring, as Mark Yesko says? Because what Mark says is that in the springtime, you still have some of that murky weather, right? It's muddy, it's nasty, but it's starting to get better, right? And if is that where we currently are right now? Well, if we look at what the bears say, now I've highlighted 4 bears, and I call them bears because short term, they have a bearish sentiment to the market. Now, Ben Cohen, now this was on the 1st of January, this is the very first day of the year. Ben Cohen thought that altcoins would dominate. So far, altcoins doesn't appear to be dominating. As a fact, Bitcoin dominance seems to be gaining more traction than the altcoins. Nicholas Merton has been an absolute bear for the past few months. He's been talking about us going lower and lower and lower. And he says no recovery anytime soon. And he talked about ETH facing another leg down. That was on the 2nd of January. And he thinks that the Mt. Gox selling pressure is coming. And he said that on the 9th of January. Crypto Capo, Crypto, however you want to pronounce his name, he calls this a bull trap. And he said that on the 9th of January, and he issued new warnings for new lows still likely, and he did that just today. He said new lows are still coming. Price is looking good right now. Will we see a reversal? Maybe. Ali Martinez said he believes that ETH could retrace to 1283, and that was on the 10th of January. Now, those are our bears. The bulls, on the other hand, I have 8 different bulls to highlight. So that would mean that there's a lot more bullish sentiment than there is bearish sentiment. So let's take a look at what some of these quote unquote bulls are saying. And remember, folks, I'm talking about they're bullish in the short term, not necessarily in the long term, although I think everybody in the crypto community is pretty bullish in the long term, right? So Michael Van de Pop, he's actually targeting 30K BTC within this run. Now he's thinking, and that's quite bullish, it looks like we might have a potential to get all the way to 30K. If we do, that's going to be a great day. Right now, a lot of people believe that if we got to 30K, that we would see another correction down, probably around the 16K level, and then that kicks us back off. Again, folks, the 10Kers out there, I will again berate you if we don't make it to 10, because I think that that's just, it takes us back to the time when Tone Vays was calling for $1,000 and we were at 3,000, saying that it was going to go to 1,000. We never ever made it. A lot of people may be waiting for this 10K, 8K, 5K range. We might not ever make it. So if you're in the 10K club, and it appears that my producer was in the 10K club, you might be in trouble. All right, Rect is calling for a big move up, and he said that on the 12th of January. Smart Contractor believes that the worst of the bear market is over. He said that on the 5th of January. Today is 10 days later. He said the worst of the bear market was over, and BTC will outperform alts, and he said that on the 14th of January, and he also said that BTC bottom is in fact in. He said that today. He's called it. The bottom is in. It's not alone. You know who else has called it the bottom is in? Pantera Capital. Dan Moorhead of Pantera Capital said last year that the market was going to bottom on the 31st of December. And he said, and the reason for this is he believes that there's 1.3 years before the halving and 1.3 years after the halving. 1.3 years before the halving, the market bottoms, and 1.3 years after it tops. I don't know if we can believe that and if we can go off of that, but that's what he believes. So he's also called that the bottom's in. Jason Pisano believes BTC accumulation period is coming to an end. Folks, if you were not accumulating Bitcoin, your time might be gone. Now, we got 4 more bulls to talk about. Those bulls are altcoin Serpa, I think that's the way you pronounce it, said that Bitcoin could go to 19K and said that on the 12th of January. Now, that was before Bitcoin actually made it to 21. So that was a good call. Justin Bennett, which has sometimes been a little bit bearish, feels like this is a significant moment for the markets. And he said that on the 12th of January. Our good old friend Plan B believes the bottom is in. Remember, bottom's in for, and it's going to explode up 4,000%. Now, he said that on the 13th. If anybody's listening to Plan B, you know he can be a little bit of a sensationalist, saying really, really outrageous stuff. Will this come true? Only time will tell. And then to end our bulls off, we've got Credible. He sees a parabolic Bitcoin surge to new all-time highs this year. Now, remember, to get to new all-time highs, we've got to get back above 70K. So where we are today, let's just call it 20, $50,000, right? If Bitcoin moved, let's say what? Even if that was 1,000, that's only 12,000. It would have to move $2,000 to $3,000 per month for the next rest of the year without having any significant pullbacks. I don't know, Credible. I think that might be out of the realm of possibilities. So if they are right, I am going to be celebrating. And if they're wrong, I hope that you do what I encourage everybody else to do. I have 3 rules for myself. 1, have enough Bitcoin that if it does make a significant move, it moves the needle and you're okay. If Bitcoin drops significantly, have enough dry powder to buy the effing dip. And if it does none of that and it just moves sideways, you just continue to accumulate and hodl. It's a super simple process, people. Now, again, that's what I do. It's not financial advice. This is just some ideas and some thoughts for you to be thinking about when you look at Bitcoin in the market that it's in. Again, if you want to play with anything other than Bitcoin, be my guest. But don't come to me and say anything to me about, oh, I lost my money, because don't play with that stuff. It's just dangerous. But if you do, just make sure you do with some good reasons. Now, the meat of what I want to sort of talk about today was this video that was recently shared with me through the Dallas Bitcoin Signal group, and it was about the most peaceful form of power projection called Bitwatts, and this is by Jason Lowery. If you know Jason Lowery, he's an Air Force guy, MIT guy, I believe. He's now advising the White House and some other folks on Bitcoin and looking at Bitcoin as a part of our national defense strategy. Now, this video was long, but I do want to sort of recap or give you my take on what I think he was really getting at. Now, again, in this whole thing, he explained stuff that's so far off my radar. He's like nerding out big time, geeking out big time on all these different aspects. He's going back to Christopher Columbus, and he's talking about defense and fighting and how systems are always out there that, you know, in order for them to be overcome, you have to like fight and to make it, you know, basically war, right? War is always the solution. And that's some of the conversations I get into with people when we start talking about the government and Bitcoin, is some people have in their minds, tyranny, we've got to take over, we've got to dominate the government, we got to break them down, we need to destroy them, right? They're the enemy, they're parasites. And I just don't believe that it needs to be this way. Now, again, if you listen to Jason in his presentation, he said, look throughout history and you'll see that anytime things have been made significant changes, they've come at the cost of war. And so what he's saying in this is that basically energy is what the entire globe is made of. Take that energy and transition it into bits of information, of data, yada, yada. This is where Bitcoin comes into play. And basically that's what Bitcoin has done. Satoshi, in their infinite wisdom, because I do believe it was a they, even in the Bitcoin white paper, it said we. So they understood that if you could use energy and convert energy into money, that's the most powerful way to do this. And so that's exactly what happened with Bitcoin. This is why proof of work is so important, because what you're doing is you're taking energy and converting that into Bitcoin. And that energy gets converted into Bitcoin. And because there's only 21 million, that's that scarcity factor, right? If there becomes massive demand, as Robert Breedlove says, 21 million plus massive demand equals number goes up. This is what it is. And if you make it incredibly hard to make any changes to the system, that ensures its security. And so that's what Jason was also talking about. So on the next slide, I'll give you again, this is my overarching recap of sort of what Jason said. And what he was really getting at was, and you've heard this before, and I think it was, if it wasn't Jeff Booth, it was someone somewhat like Jeff Booth, but you know, fix the money, fix the war. I forgot who actually said that, and don't shoot me. I know I probably should know who said that, but the cliff notes is that basically the old internet, and he was talking about this in the government. He says if you go to the government right now, they have old systems that are arcane. I mean, they're ancient, right? But the way that they fix that and the way to make a transition, I've been in the government, I've seen this happen. You create a brand new system and then you slowly migrate over to the new system. This is what's happened with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the parallel economy, just waiting for us to begin to move over to the new economy. And so that's what's happening. In the first, he said, is financial services, right? So financial services is moving first to Bitcoin. That's going to be the first system we transition. Then comes, if you ask me, identity, right? If you can transition identity over to Bitcoin, then you're going to have a decentralized, censorship-resistant way to identify ourselves on the internet. And then once that happens, then you can continue to do all the other pieces that are coming into play, right? Look at what BlackRock's CEO, Larry Fink, said. He said, tokenization is the future. right? And he even understands that stocks and bonds and everything else is eventually going to be tokenized. Real estate, right, is going to be tokenized. And that's the system that we're going to live in. So again, old internet to new internet, port the financial services first. Bitcoin is the internet revolution. And if you fix the money, you fix the world. Folks that are concerned about the government and trying to fix government, and I've had this debate in the Bikini Bitcoin meetup. No, we probably won't be able to fix the old government system, the two-party system, the print out of, insanity system with the Fed. It's going to require a new system. The hope is that we're in the process of starting to make this shift. And if Jason is successful in talking with the White House and talking with government and getting them to understand Bitcoin, maybe we'll start seeing governments adopt Bitcoin. I do want to eventually have a conversation with someone about what happens if the government gets into Bitcoin mining. There was a question about what happens if the government gets into Bitcoin mining, they try to push out all the private miners. I don't even know if that's even possible to happen. And I definitely don't know if the government will even try it to try to take over Bitcoin, which we know that that won't happen because it's a decentralized system. Even if governments got involved in mining Bitcoin, does that mean they can take control of Bitcoin? I don't believe they can. Now, again, if you're someone watching the show and you have some strong thoughts on that and you believe there is a case where the government can, in fact, take over Bitcoin, I would love to have you on the show to talk about that because I think that would be quite exciting, right? And so, again, this is the thing. In McKinney Bitcoin Telegram, we were talking about this. And one of the things that I think we were all in agreement is that when we look at the world, there are so many different aspects of concern. But if we try to address all those concerns, 90% of the time, there's not much that's going to get done. However, if you focus in on your influence, what can you influence? What can you do today to get yourself out of the old system? This is going to be the main thing that we need to focus on. Can you, as an individual, get yourself out of the system? Can you ensure you're not a part of the system? One of the easiest ways to do that is to make sure you're putting your money into Bitcoin. Bitcoin, right? Not all this other Bitcoin. And the reason for that is because you're now taking control of ownership of your time, your energy, your assets, everything like that. And so when you do that, that's going to put you on a better course. Then turn your attention to your family. Are all the members of your family understanding what Bitcoin is? And are they adopting it? If your family's doing it, then start talking about your community. This is where Bitcoin meetups are so crucial and valuable because Bitcoin meetups make it possible for those Bitcoiners in those communities to come out and bring the community out, get them together in the area and talk about Bitcoin. And then if the communities are doing it, then you can start looking at the city level and start seeing if the city is starting to adopt Bitcoin, as in Miami has done, right? And then, because we have ways we can point to this, and then you look at it on a state level. Look at El Salvador. El Salvador is doing it on what I call the state level, even though their country, right? State level. Then if we can get the nation to do it, that'll be great too. This is the way we're going to get ourselves out of the old into the new, but it requires us as individuals to start making this happen. Now, is there a place for toxic maximalism? There might be. There might be some people that won't listen unless you're somewhat toxic, right? But I don't believe that I need to be that way. I believe I can be more effective in another way. Again, we all have our way to be effective. The question is, will we make an attempt to be effective? And that's going to be the key. So, as you see here, I tell people all the time, think about who and what you listen to it can heavily influence your financial future. If I'm listening to some of those bears right now, I very well could miss out on Bitcoin really shooting up and going to the moon. Or if I'm listening to those bulls right now, and I think, oh my God, Bitcoin's going to 10, it's still actually a good thing because here's the thing. that means you should be storing up as much dry powder as you possibly can so that when it does get there, you can buy the effing dip, right? See how that works? No matter which one of these you're listening to, it's still going to be up to you as an individual to make that decision on what you need to do. And I will leave you with this before I sort of finalize things. If you make a decision off of something you heard from myself, any of these folks that's in the news, or anybody else that's out there, thought leader or not, celebrity, Tom Brady, and you make a decision, please make that decision understanding it's ultimately your responsibility to make that decision. Now, do they play a part in it? Of course they do. They influence you to do something. But at the end of the day, it's your decision and you made that decision. You need to be able to live with the consequence of that decision. And if you can't, my thought is you should not make that decision. If you make a decision, and this is not only in Bitcoin, this is anything in life, based off of what someone else has told you, please understand there are consequences to every decision we make. Those consequences can be good consequences, or those consequences can be bad consequences. If I decide to drive 80 miles an hour down the freeway and the speed limit is 70, which it is here in Texas, and I get pulled over and I get a ticket, I can't blame anyone except for myself because I saw the speed limit. I saw what it was supposed to be. I decided to go faster than what it was supposed to be. Simple as that. If you decide to make a decision in life, understand hey, the decision to buy Bitcoin can be a good or bad decision, however you decide to frame it and whatever the time period is. If you bought it at 60 and you made the decision to sell it at 16, that's on you. You lost money. If you decide to buy it at 16 and decide to sell it at 70, good on you. You made a lot of money, right? That's a good consequence, good, bad. Hope you're getting what I'm throwing out. So let me finish up by telling you a few things. Here's how you guys can always get in contact with me. As I've mentioned to some of you before, I got myself off of Twitter this year. That was sort of my resolution, if you can call it. I just got tired of nonsense over there. Instead, I'm now on a platform called Woobits. I know, wonky name, but it's true. Woobits.com. It's a great platform. I tell people there are real people there having real conversations, making real connections, and that's what Woobits is all about. Somewhat like Twitter, right? But here's the thing, you can also monetize. If you're a good creator and you create good content, come over to Woobits. People will tip you, people will take and buy your content, and it's a great way for you to be able to monetize. There's a lot of ways to monetize, but Woobits makes it possible, especially if you are someone who really enjoy writing content and making content available for others to learn, which is great, or to just share so that they can become aware. I like sharing a lot of content. I like making people aware of what's going on out there. And so that's one of the best ways to contact me. And here's the beautiful thing about being on Woobits. One, there's no KYC. So they're not trying to KYC your information. And two, it's incredibly easy. Believe it or not, they have a Twitter plugin so that you just connect your Twitter account and boom, you're in. Or better would be to use your Ethereum wallet to connect to the platform. Now, you Bitcoiners out there, Bitcoin only folks, I'm sorry. Yes, this is not Bitcoin only platform. It's not Nostra. I know everybody's talking about Nostra right now. This is not it. This is Woobits. I think it's a lot faster, a lot simpler, and a lot easier to connect and share your information with other people. So that's number one. If you want to reach me on LinkedIn, you guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And of course, the most important place to always find me is on my website, because I have all those other connection places there for you to connect with me. The cryptocurator.com. This website is designed to highlight a few things. First, it's there to highlight the 3 top articles of the day. Now, these are not top articles because they are the biggest story. It's because they're the most covered. And I found in the media, sometimes there's some big stories come out. Nobody really writes about them. A couple people will write articles about it. I'm scratching my head like, why aren't more people publishing articles on this? There's other things that come out. Everyone's covered, i.e. the Coinbase cutting 20% of their workforce was the most covered article of the week. And I was shocked. in addition to the top 3 most covered news articles, I try and make sure I put, just in information or breaking news information. And then I'll give you a video and a podcast of the day. The video, I look through a lot of videos during the day. I come across things that I think are really relevant, and I put those on the websites. And the podcast of the day, I look through probably 30 podcasts a day. I listen to most of them, not all of them, but based on who podcast it is and what they're talking about and the guests they have on, I pretty much can tell you if it's going to be a pretty good podcast or not. And I put the podcast of the day. I have both of my shows on there, and then I've got some other information further down the website that you definitely probably would want to take a look at. So, folks, this is Bitcoin is Freedom. I still believe Bitcoin is the best asset the world has ever seen. I do believe, as Mark Yusko believes, that it's the best savings technology the world has ever seen. And on my website at the top, I have a DCA link there. If you click on it, you could go back and see, if I were DCAing $25 into Bitcoin every week, here's how much money I would have given what Bitcoin has done already. This gives you an idea of the power of what Bitcoin can do for your savings. Your money is split up in a ton of different buckets. Not all of your money is going to be in Bitcoin. So diversification is still important. Have some real estate. Maybe you have some gold. Maybe you have some stocks. Maybe you have some people like to diversify themselves to keep themselves safe, and that's fine. But if you're saving and you're looking for the power of what Bitcoin can do, you're going to want to have some Satoshis. Hey, there are some opportunities out there for you to mine Bitcoin. There's all kinds of ways to get Satoshis, folks. And if you're not getting any of them, if you're listening to this and you don't have any Bitcoin whatsoever, I would be shocked. Yes, a lot of people are calling this a pump trap. And, someone asked, what is the best bet for a bull run flip? I'm willing to say that I'm cautiously optimistic. My good friend, Brian Swan, Fibbo Swanee, if you ever listen to him, go check out, I think his website is fibboswanee.com. He's a technical analyst. He does this for a day job. He's been doing it for the past couple of decades. Please listen to him when it comes to technicals and to understand what's really possible for the market to do. He takes all of the sensationalization out of it. He's the only adult in the room, and he knows I said that many times to him. And he can give you the real scoop. You can find him on Twitter, believe it or not, Fibbo Swanee, FIBBOSWANNY, Fibbo Swanee. Check out his website, and he also has a Telegram group. So these are the voices that I listen to when I'm trying to understand what's going to happen in the market. I believe right now, I think he's also cautiously optimistic on Bitcoin possibly moving a little bit higher. Could we see a retracement? Absolutely. We've had a powerful move in Bitcoin. For us to think that up only, there will be a pullback at some point. At what point the pullback comes, I'm not sure. I wish I could tell you for certain, but this is why I'm not a financial advisor. This is why I can't tell people what to do with their money, because I am giving my opinion. Everybody has an opinion, right? And I'm free to have an opinion in this world, and that's exactly what I have. All I'm offering you is one person's opinion out of 8 billion people. If you decide to listen to my opinion and make a decision on it, that's still your decision. It's not my decision. I'm not putting a gun in your head. I'm not forcing you to do anything, right? But I'm telling you, I believe Bitcoin's freedom. And I promise I'll let you go. Here's the reason why. Folks, I've been aware of Bitcoin since 2011. I have been through multiple of these cycles. I've seen it do it again and again and again and again. I had a good friend ask me once, what has fundamentally changed about Bitcoin to make you want to sell it? Nothing. There's nothing that's changed about Bitcoin. So then why are you selling? There should be no reason. Now, if you're a trader, you got all the reason in the world to understand these cycles. If you're an investor, you have no reason to sell. It's all about accumulation. That's the name of the game for an investor, because you believe in it. You believe in what the white paper says, you believe in the math behind it, and you believe in the developers and node operators and the miners, right? That's where I believe. And I believe nothing has changed about any one of those. Nodes are still coming up online. Bitcoin developers are still improving the code. miners are still mining Bitcoin, even though a lot of them went bankrupt. They're still mining Bitcoin. Hasn't changed for me. So if nothing's changed, why would I want to sell? I shouldn't. I should buy the dips, but I shouldn't sell. So with that, this has been Bitcoin is Freedom. I'm Paul McNeil, the crypto curator. Thank you all for listening who have. Thank you for watching it if you're watching the replay of it. And I'll see you guys on Thursday for Bitcoin and politics. Thanks a lot.